Good evening. This is the JP Dinnell podcast, episode number 3. I am JP Dinnell, and again, I am here with Lucas. What's up, brother?
What's going on, man? Good evening.
How are you doing?
I'm fantastic.
I am excited for this episode because we're going to close it up with Codey Gandy. What's up, Codey?
Gents, how are you?
I'm sorry. I could not resist. I will.
No, I'm going to own it. It's there now. It's mine.
Awesome.
Can't take it back.
How you doing, man?
Doing great.
Another late night evening episode because, well, we've been busy this week.
Yes, sir.
How was Monday for you? The FTX that we did on Monday.
Monday was awesome. We had 29 people from all walks of life, all different types of businesses, able to learn some leadership, some of the struggles that they're going through, and have some tangible things they can bring back to their personal and professional lives, which is awesome.
So the FTX program is our hands-on scenario-based leadership training program that we run at Echelon Front. It is Codey's department. He runs all of our field training exercises, and man, it's awesome. We normally do it for corporations. Like we'll go to a company and work with their company, with their employees and their leaders. And then we started doing these individual FTXs similar to the muster, where a small group or a medium group or a large group or even an individual could come to it. We had a good amount of individuals on this one.
Yes, sir.
And what was, for you, from your position running that training, like, I mean, obviously it's very satisfying watching the people go through the training and seeing them get those aha light bulb moments. Were there any that stood out to you on Monday that it just makes you proud to know that, like your program helped facilitate that?
Yes, sir. I think what I find best about the FTX, this one or previous ones, is, the principles that we teach, Jacques and Leif, they wrote the book about, they're pretty easy to understand. Yeah. And they're easy to talk about. They're easy to digest. You read the book, you understand what cover and move is. And I'm like, I get that. I do that. And then we put you in a situation where there's no more lying to yourself. And now it's, I actually am not good at that. Actually, I'm not good whatsoever. I have a lot of work to do. And so that stress, that chaos that we're able to create with laser tag systems and some noise and some people, there's no hiding who you are. And so from there, I had a lot of conversations, especially on the personal front with parents understanding, hey, I need to detach with my kids, or I'm not covering moving with my spouse. Like, to be able to hear that, I know that those people are going to go back to their families and be a better father, mother, spouse. In addition, that makes them going back to their companies that much easier. And because, as we all know, those things translate over. What you do at home translates over to work, and what you have at work, you bring that back at home. It all works together. And so when you're out of balance on one of those, you're going to bring that back to the other side, and then you're all out of whack. So to hear people, hey, I need to fix stuff at home, I like hearing that and understanding that, because, man, it's bringing the stuff back to home. People can make the connection easier there, but I would argue it's the hardest to implement, because of the dynamic of the relationships and the closeness of that with the child or with your spouse. It makes it that much harder to actually get over that hump of trying to implement these things.
Yeah. There's a good amount of feedback at the end of the day. We're talking with people, asking them, like, what was their takeaway? What are they going to apply, from the full day of training? And there are a lot of them tied it back to their personal life also, like going to war with complacency and, learning to detach. And, those are things that we teach and we talk about at Echelon Front. And it was also cool seeing people connected to, like, stuff with their kids and their spouse, like you were talking about. Like when you hear somebody talking about, working on their marriage and being more intentional with the communication with their spouse, you're like, man, that could potentially change generations. Because now if a married couple is being more intentional with their communication, and one of the guys was like, I need to be better at being default aggressive to saying I'm sorry to my wife. He pulled me aside and he's like, hey, he's like, I want to thank you for sharing your personal story, and I just need to be more default aggressive with apologizing to my wife. And I'm like, dude, that's incredible. This is one of the attendees, he pulled me aside afterwards because, I closed out talking about Seth and, when he passed away. And, I shared that story on our first episode of this podcast as we closed it out. And one of the gentlemen pulled me aside, and I could tell something was wrong when I was, like, closing out and talking. And, his head was down. And he pulled me aside, and he just had tears in his eyes. And he's like, I'm sorry. And I'm like, it's okay, man. And we started trying to talk, and he couldn't really like talk, and he just kept apologizing. And I'm like, hey, it's okay. What's, you know, and I'm wondering like, okay, what's going on? Like, obviously something is heavy on this guy's heart. And he starts crying, and then he's able to stop, and he tells me, he said, in April, my wife and I lost our 16-month-old son, and his son had fallen into their pool and drowned, and he was on the road on a work trip, and his wife tried to resuscitate their baby and wasn't able to, and called him, and he shared with me just how angry and mad and just confused he's been. And he said this was his first work trip, the first time he's been gone since this happened. And when he left, he has 2 other sons. His oldest son said, Dad, the last time you left, my little brother died. And so for this kid, that he associates that now. And I'm sitting there listening, and I'm just like trying not just to break down myself, like, because I'm thinking about losing a child, and just I couldn't fathom what that would be like. And you know, he feels a lot of guilt, and his wife obviously feels a lot of guilt. And he told me that his company was like, we're going to charter you a jet to get you home right now, like nonstop, get you home. So they chartered this jet, and he's like, so he's dealing with all this stuff. Pilot's there, co-pilot just doesn't show up, so they can't fly the jet. So now he's stuck trying to like figure out this next option. And he gets on a regular flight. He has a layover. He's dealing with a layover, delayed flight, finally gets home. And he's just like talking to me through all these things. And he said, you know, usually I'm a pretty easygoing guy, and I've been finding myself irritable lately. And I said, hey, that's okay. It's okay to feel the way you feel. I was like, it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be upset. It's okay to be confused and frustrated and sad and mad. And I'm like, all those things that you feel, it's okay. And this just hadn't been reiterated to him, which just, to me, just blows my mind and breaks my heart that this guy is feeling all these things, and he's just wondering, is it okay to feel this way? And I was, you know, talking to him, and I said, you know, I don't want to cross the line on anything. I said, but I want to encourage you to like to lean into God. I was like, because that's going to be your only source of peace. I'm telling you right now, like leaning into God is the only thing that's going to give you and your wife and your kids any sort of peace, because what you're feeling right now is unimaginable. And I said, I'm not going to even act like I know what you're going through right now. I could not imagine that. But I do know what it's like to lose people that are very close to me. And I do know that I felt every single one of those emotions that you're talking about. And humans feel what you feel. Like, this is the way God designed us to feel these things. And I said, and it doesn't make sense. And you know what? I don't think it'll ever make sense. What happened is never going to make sense to you. I said, but you can't blame yourself, and your wife, she's got to stop blaming herself, because there's 0% chance that she wanted this to happen. And you know that to be true as well. And it was a heartbreaking moment to like work through all this stuff with this guy. And he shared it all with me. And he's like, I want to say thank you for what you and Codey have done and taught me and shared today. I had nothing like that I could really come back with other than, hey, well, we appreciate you being here. And, you know, if you need anything, we're here for you. And, you know, I didn't really know what else to say to that, because I didn't think there was anything else to say. I mean, I can't keep saying, hey, I'm sorry, because then, I mean, I've already said it a few times, and he didn't want to hear it either. And I think he just needed to be able to talk through some stuff. And, you know, that's one of the things that we get to do at Echelon Front. And I know you've dealt with this before. And when you get blindsided by somebody coming at you and they're super emotional, I don't mean blindsided in a bad way. Just, you don't expect it. All of a sudden, boom, they open up about something. I know this happened to you a few times, and you'll text me and be like, hey, man, like, this is what happened. And it's just, so for those that are listening, I mean, like, what do you have to add to that in regards to just the ability to detach from your emotions and think logically? Because that's a hard thing to do. And I couldn't even imagine the emotions this guy is feeling when he's on the road and he gets a call from his wife, hey, our 16-month-old son is dead. He drowned. And just his ability, honestly, to communicate this to me, I was very impressed. And when he shared the story of the jet and then how that didn't work and then all the other things, I was completely speechless thinking about all those things he dealt with. And, you know, when this episode is going to be released, the next week from when this is released, we'll be at the muster here in Dallas. And one of the things that you talk about is
detachment.
All right. What do you got?
Before I talk about detachment, what you went through, I think it's important to talk about the importance of listening.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't there, but I can tell you your ability to listen when somebody just wanted to talk and vent, it's powerful. I've learned that over the years, and I've never been a good listener because, well, I don't think people really are at all, because we have our own agenda, we have our own thoughts, and somebody else talks, and we already have our own thought process. I already know what I'm going to say before JP even finishes that sentence. It reminds me, we were up at Battlefield. There was a gentleman there who was not disagreeing with the stuff we were talking about, but he was just really fired up. He just got fired and was passionate. And we finished up the day. We sat and had the dinner afterwards. And then for the next 3.5 hours, I just sat and talked with him. When I say talked with him, I just sat and listened, because for 3.5 hours, he just talked to me. Wow. And I didn't say anything. And there was a client there that sat at the table with us this is his business partner. And at the very end of this whole thing, he thanked me just for listening. Because I think there's a lot of times in life where people want to talk, they're going through a lot of hard things, and they have this courage to share a story. And then when another person listens, it creates a peace of mind. Yeah. So before I get into detachment, I want to talk about that power of listening, because I've learned that at Echelon Front through you, through Carlos, through Jocko Leif, that it's a powerful, powerful tool. Because when you listen, you have intent to listen, not just hear, but listen to what somebody's saying. You truly understand where they're coming from. It will guide you to what you should say, if anything at all, or what comes next. Mm-hmm. So that listening is important. But on detachment, I think at the FTX, you would agree that detachment is the number one thing people leave with, is how to do it, or that they do it poorly.
Yes.
Because at the FTX, you use this laser tag gun, and all you want to do is shoot, 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 when in reality, we need to be off the gun, and we need to look around. But I get to talk about that at muster, which I feel absolutely privileged to do, and detachment's been something I've strived to do my entire life. And growing up with my dad being in law enforcement, as we've talked about, I had this stoic, unemotional person in my house, and I thought that's who I should be. And so I took that, joined the Marine Corps, and then in the Marine Corps, there's not really a lot of emotions being talked about. So it was easy for me to detach.
Other than the emotion of killing the enemy.
Besides that part,
what makes the grass grow?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I had to.
But that mold was created when I was younger, and I took it to heart. And I thought, as a man, like, emotions you just don't show, especially, sadness or crying. It was something that I was not supposed to do. So for majority of my life, I thought I was able to detach. It was really easy to do. And then as I got older, I started to get married and have kids. My ability to detach started to falter. Having kids, you guys both have kids. We get frustrated with our kids because they aren't doing what we want them to do, and we're quick to jump and get frustrated when in reality it's my 4-year-old doing 4-year-old stuff, and why should I be mad when they literally don't know what they're doing? And so I've gone through those growing pains, but this detachment, we say it's a tool, and it follows under prioritize and execute, right? I have a bunch of stuff going on. I have chaos, I have stress, I have problems, I have priorities, I have 3 people telling me what to do. I can't do all of them. What I can do is I stop, I take a second, I take a breath, gain some situational awareness, I gain some strategic vision, and then I assess and make a call. Like, that's how we teach this. And so for me, now with kids, everything has started to change, because I had this tool. I thought I utilized it properly, but I mean, you can train this all you want, but potentially you're going to get put in a situation where you're not prepared. I mean, you trained as a SEAL for all this stuff, but something that happens with your kid that you've never prepared for, it's just different. And so what you fall back on and what you rise to is that training that we talked about. And so what I've been sharing at the muster is a lot of things that happen with my children, because I feel I'm good at detaching when I have conversations with adults, but with kids, it's just been different for me. And so about 2 years ago, my oldest son, Bear, he started to have seizures. So he has these complex febrile seizures. And I travel a lot, and the first one that happened a couple years ago was when we were at an FTX, and my wife called me, and she goes, "Hey, Bear's had a seizure. That's all I know. We're on the way to the hospital." And at that moment, I mean, I'm across the United States, and I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. All I know is I'm extremely frustrated that I can't help the situation. And so going back home, Bear turns out okay, gets released from the hospital. I go home and we talk about this because, hey, we live what we preach. So we're training for this potentially to happen again. We're ready. We're talking to doctors and all this stuff. And then the next time he has a seizure, I'm home. And my wife looks at me in the middle of the day during the week and she goes, "Hey, it's going to happen again. Like, these are the signs they told us to look for. It's going to happen." And what's crazy is, you know, in the Marine Corps, even in high school and stuff, I've seen people have seizures. Like, I know what to do. Like, you can't stop it. Like, it's inevitable. It's going to happen. But it's my son, and it's my oldest son. It's the one that my nickname as a kid was Bear. It's the tattoo on my arm. It's the one closest like me. So I need to stop this from happening. So instead of detaching, I get flustered. I get angry at the situation, and that's not making the situation better. But I recognize in the chaos of this is I intentionally... I take a step back from what's happening. My son's having a seizure on the bed. I physically take a step back, and right then and there, just the light bulb clicks on. I'm like, I have to detach. So I pause. I'm watching what's going on. It's unfolding, and something pops in my mind, and it's, hey, you need to ask for help. And for me, that's a huge problem that I've had in my life. It's one of my biggest red flags is when I need to ask for help from someone. I typically don't. And I know that's not the right case because I don't know everything. I don't know how to handle every situation.
I would correct something that you said. You said have. I would say had.
Correct.
Okay.
And so in that moment, recognizing that my biggest red flag in life is popping up, I knew that it was a valid statement that I had to ask for help. And so I stopped what I was doing because I didn't know what to do. And I called a member of our team, someone you know, Danny Ziem, who... 17 years, firefighter, paramedic, knows exactly what to do. I'm like, hey, man, this is what's going on. I'm trying to be as calm as I can. Hey, help me out. And so he guides me through what to do. Eventually, we get our way to the hospital, get him passed over to the doctors, and everything pans out. But it was something that I wasn't prepared for. So even though we teach detachment and we train detachment at the FTX, and I train myself in hard situations in the Marine Corps and out of it, you're going to run into something that you're not prepared for. And what you do in that situation, if you don't know what to do, what you can do is, hey, I need to detach. I need to stop before I make a rash decision. I need to assess and figure out what I need to do and not what I want to do. Because I could tell you in that situation what I wanted to do was to be stubborn and listen to my ego and try to handle the situation by myself. When in reality, what I needed to do was ask for help, ask for somebody else to guide me through what to do. And I'm thankful for going through. I mean, obviously not thankful for what happened to my son, but the situation and what happened from it and the lessons learned, I'm thankful for that because it's happened 5 or 6 times with my son, Bear. And I have 4 kids, and as you guys know, kids, they get into things and things happen. And we just had something a couple months ago with my daughter. My oldest son has seizures, and my daughter, her name's, she goes by Ray. That's her middle name, and she's 1. And we were at a baseball game as a family, and she slipped through the bleachers and fell about 15 to 17 feet, and landed on the concrete below. And I just remember the chaos of this. I have 3 other kids. My wife, Paige, is standing up trying to figure out what to do. My wife runs off to try to find somebody to help. And I'm stuck with my other kids, and I can peek through and see my daughter laying on the floor, not moving, not breathing. And so the thought just runs through my head like, well, what can you do? And so I stand up, I try to assess the situations. I'm practicing a skill that I've learned for 32 years. I have to detach. So I calmly, as calm as I can, stand up. I go look over. It's a cinder block wall, so I can't go that way. Cinder block wall on the other side. The other side's a gate that's locked. And so there's nowhere to get in. So I'm walking back and forth, and I try to pick up the bleachers that are bolted in, and it's not budging. So I slide my way through. I cut my chest open just so I can drop down the 15 feet to my daughter. And I can tell you, it was the longest, 15 steps of my life. Because she's laying on the ground, her face is away from me, she's not moving, she's not crying, and just all these things are running through my head. But, again, what can I do? So I stay as calm as I possibly can. I walk over to her, I pick her up, and she takes a big breath. And as she takes a big breath, I pick her up, she looks at me, and she starts crying. And then in that moment, my training starts to kick in. I'm no paramedic, no EMT, but I've gone through some sort of training where I can assess and figure out what's going on, to where I'm trying to assess, does she have, a fracture on the outside of her skull? Like, can I see blood or anything? And there's nothing. Is there anything on her body, any bumps, bruises, or anything out of the ordinary? And there's nothing. And I'm focusing on that because we are literally locked under this, like, we can't get out, and nobody can find a key. And so my wife's on the other side trying to get in, and there's nothing that we can do. But all I can do for the sake of my daughter and for my wife who's watching me is to be calm. As hard as that is to say out loud and hard as it was in that moment in time, I know, calm is contagious.
Yeah.
And so is chaos. Because I could tell you, if I was chaotic in that scene or with my son Bear or in any situation that I've been in life, typically when you're chaotic, the people around you are going to get to your level or even higher.
Yeah, they freak out.
So I knew, and I know, remaining calm, even when they unlocked the gate, walking out, and my other kids watching what's happening, passing her off to the paramedics, I knew I had to be calm. Because being calm, I was able to pass off all the information that I knew, because I was there, I saw what was happening, how long she was unconscious, what potential she hit on the way down. I had all the information. And if I was chaotic, if I was out of control, if I didn't detach, that information would have got washed away, or would have passed the wrong information. And what if I passed the wrong information that potentially could have saved her life? All because I didn't detach. And so I had to put my trust in the paramedics and the EMTs to get her off, and my wife went with them, and I went with the rest of the kids, and we eventually linked up with her. But, for I think 3 or 4 days, she had to stay at the hospital because she had a skull fracture. She had a skull fracture, and for the last 2 months, we had to make sure that she didn't hit her head again.
Yeah.
Because once she got released, it's a 1-year-old who can't speak yet, who is just learning how to walk, watching their crazy brothers and sisters. For her not to bump her head was something that we had to focus on. And what was cool after the fact is myself and Paige aligning on, hey, this is number one priority, is to make sure this doesn't happen again. But getting our other kids involved, my 5 and 4 and 3, who don't even know how to tie their shoes, but explaining to them the importance of, hey, Ray, like, we can't let her bump her head. And they're fired up, like they're bought in, like, I'm going to protect my baby sister. Yes. And it's so awesome to see at such a very young age for these kids who are just learning this much of life. That bond that they're creating at such a young age, it's very cool to see. But these things with my kids, which they're still young, more stuff's going to get thrown my way. Like, how do you handle the unknown is a question we get a lot at Echelon Front. Like, how do I handle these worst case scenarios I'm not prepared for? The answer I give, I would assume you give, that everybody should be aware of. How you handle those is through detachment. Yeah. And why that's so hard is it's a counterintuitive thought process. We're not programmed to detach. You're not programmed to take the emotions out of the situation. We get tunnel vision, we get target fixation, we all have emotions. That's what we want to listen to, but what you need to listen to is, I need to stop. I need to get some more information. I need to get some more context on what's going on. I need to gain some perspective from other people involved before I make a decision, because that decision, if you don't have that information, could be wrong. And there's a lot of risk associated. There's a lot of consequences involved in the decisions that we make, and detachment allows you to see those things.
Yeah. Oh, that's a man. I've heard that story a few times, and it's hard to hear again. And and obviously I know for you and your wife Paige, it was really hard when you guys were working through that. And my wife Amanda and I were very close to that with you guys, and you guys had shared everything with us. And I remember it really upset my wife, and I was upset by it. And it's your ability to remain calm in that situation was impressive. And I just want to reiterate one of the things that you said is calmness is contagious. Calmness is contagious. And if we can't remain calm, we can't expect anybody else around us to be able to do the same thing.
Absolutely not.
Your attitude as a leader is contagious. And that's what we teach at Echelon Front. Your attitude as a leader is contagious. And we have to be mindful of what we do, what we say, how we hold ourselves, even like you were talking about, like your posture and your body language was critical as you're holding your daughter, as you're, looking at your wife, and your wife is looking at you, and she's going to feed off of your energy as well. Man, I know that's very difficult for you to share, and I want to thank you for sharing that, because I know our listeners are definitely going to get something out of that. And I mean, if a handful of people just remember, hey, calmness is contagious. My attitude as a leader is contagious. I need to be mindful of it. I mean, that's a huge win.
Yes, sir. And I'll also say, I know you just touched on this about, in times of crisis, not knowing to lean into God. I remember right after the incident when I passed off Ray and Paige went in the ambulance, I texted you and I texted Danny. Mm-hmm. And I was like, hey, this is what happened. Like, we need prayers right now, because it's outside of my control. And if it's outside of my control, the only thing I can lean on is him.
That's the only thing that you can do. And I don't remember exactly what Danny and I said. I think both of us were like on it, something like that. And I took that info, and I was careful to protect, obviously, like you and your family's privacy. But at the end of the day, like, hey, the more people that are praying for you and your daughter, I know that it's going to be better. And I also knew you would be okay with it. And I sent it out to the leaders of Walking in Truth Ministry, and a couple different groups from Pursuit, just be like, hey, here's kind of what's going on. Didn't give details, but Codey and his family definitely needs prayers. And man, there's a lot of people that were praying for your daughter, like within a short window of time, it's also another great point of just thinking about like having the proper support circle, having the proper people in your life that when you have chaos that's happening, you can lean to, that are going to bring it back down as well. They're not adding to it, like, oh my gosh, are you serious? Like, what? Like, how could you let your daughter do that? Hey, is she okay? Like, you're like, what good would that have done? But you know what's crazy is that happens to people. They'll
Absolutely.
call a friend or a family member and just be like, hey, this is what happened. It's like, what? How could you let that happen? Just like freaking out. It's like, hey, that's not going to help anything right now.
It's going to make it worse.
It's going to make it a lot worse.
Exponentially worse.
Before we get into complacency, which actually I know you could tie this into complacency, you're real big on obviously your workouts and staying disciplined to that. And I know we talked about it, like sometimes, hey, it's going to be late at night, or just whenever you can get it in. But like, what type of workouts have you been hitting? Like, what is GameDay Gandy like to do to stay at that game day ready status? I mean, dude, you're a freaking stud when it comes to your athletics, and you always have been, and you're in your 30s and you're still maintaining it at a very high level. What type of programs do you follow or program for yourself?
It's definitely changed over the years.
Okay.
Growing up, it was always weightlifting, and in football, it's the powerlifting, Olympic lifts and stuff like that. It's the speed, it's the sprints, and then joining the Marine Corps, it's not that at all. It's 100-pound ruck packs on 50-mile hikes, and the muscles don't help. Some of the muscles that you've earned, they don't help in those rucks. It's a 3-mile time run where when you weigh a lot, that's not helpful. So it's changed, and depending on the situation that I've been in, I've changed how I train because you have to adapt to what you're getting yourself into. And so once I got out of the Marine Corps, right before I got out of the Marine Corps, I started to find CrossFit, and CrossFit was extremely humbling to me because I have the mobility of a popsicle stick. And so I'm 32 years old. I've never been able to touch my toes. So I'm like, hey, let's do overhead squats. and let's try that out. Yeah, it's a factual statement. Can't touch my toes still. I'll get there one day.
How is that possible?
You know,
How did you
when it's
cheat
not a
How did
priority.
you cheat all those military physical, those little toe touch, those super effective military standards where it's like touch your toes? Oh, you can't. You're kicked out of the military now.
You know, a little flexion in the knee,
A little flexion,
with some
and
long shorts, and
just you go and grab, and then when you're done, it's like tearing.
yeah.
You really can't touch your toes.
No, I've never been able to.
Prove it.
I'll prove it right now.
I want to see it. I want to see this.
I just did squats today, so that might help me out. Let's see. Oh, we're wrapped up here. All right, JP, you're closest to me, so my knees are straight. It's gotten a lot better. That's as close as I can get.
It's like this far away.
You know, it's like 6 inches away.
Yeah, I got a pretty good picture there. That's going on the. You'll have to see that on YouTube.
Yeah. If you're not listening to YouTube, please listen to us on YouTube. That actually helps us out, right?
Yeah.
As a podcast.
Yeah, it does for sure.
People listening on YouTube. Hey, even if you just put it in the background, if you already listen on iTunes or Spotify,
Yeah.
like just playing it in the background would be huge.
Helps us out a ton.
Okay.
And check out this picture of GameDay Gandy not touching his toes.
I just want to like do a head kick right now and show you my flexibility.
I could probably kick your knee, and it's about as high as I can go.
If you try to, okay. All right.
What I just saw is the first time I've not felt emasculated since I've been part of JP's podcast. It was the first time where I was like, I'm physically competent enough to be at this table.
I'm glad I could help you. But yeah, so CrossFit.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's,
Okay, sorry,
I
let's
forgot
go
where
back.
we're at.
Yeah.
CrossFit.
Go back to your super mobile.
So the Marine Corps in 2015, right before I got out, they started to introduce this HIIT concept, which is like high intensity training.
High intensity interval training. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. And so we'd have these Connex boxes with a bunch of cool stuff in it that you can do anywhere, anytime. It was by the same time that CrossFit was coming out, and then watching what people in CrossFit were doing, like, hey, that dude can run a mile in 5 minutes and he can squat 500 pounds. I'm like, that's pretty epic. And so I became fascinated with that because, you know, it's just so every day is so different. Like, for instance, today I did back squat, front squat. I rode for 20 minutes, and then I did bench press, and then I did curls, and then I ended with core. And every day it's just something new. And my biggest thing is it tests me every single day. Like, I live in Arizona. I work out in a garage that's like 140 degrees, and I work out at the hottest part of the day, or I work out at 10 o'clock at night because I like to put myself through adversity. Because I recognize, and as everybody should recognize, if you're not putting yourself into strenuous situations, if you're not putting yourself through adversity, then you can't be surprised when you can't produce when those times come. Because we all should be aware that those times are coming. It is simply a matter of time. And so if you're not prepared, you can't be shocked when you're not performing when the times come.
It's not an if, it's a when.
Yes, sir. And so I've been doing that CrossFit for the last couple of years, and I can do that anywhere, anytime. So we travel a lot, so hotels, I don't need a whole lot. If I can find a gym, like today I went to a gym down the road, paid $5 and got to use all the cool machines. So CrossFit for me gives me the flexibility and the gives me a test for mental toughness, and those two things are what I need. So that's what I'm doing right now.
Nice. That's awesome. Now, those workouts are also, like you were just talking about, preparing for adversity and being able to perform. How do you tie that into complacency and not being complacent with your health? I'm sure you're going to tie it into all aspects of, you know, your family, your marriage, your finances, just Echelon Front, how you perform.
Yeah, I mean, complacency is a huge thing we talk about at Echelon Front. We talk about complacency at the FTX, and you know, we teach habits and tendencies at Echelon Front, and complacency, it is a tendency. Complacency is a matter of time if you're not intentional with putting, you know, structure in your life for complacency not to creep in. And, you know, in the military, for me, complacency was a buzzword, and a lot of people didn't take it seriously because it's that repetitive thing, and it's like, man, that's annoying. Like, yes, I know I need to train. I know I need to bring my gear. I know I need to bring, you know, my body armor every single time. And eventually, because it is a tendency, you start to tune those out. And hey, as a human being, we we like the path of least resistance. We like the easy path. And so if I can take something out, if I don't have to do 10 rehearsals, I can only do 2 rehearsals, that's when complacency starts to creep in. And for me in the military, what I learned is, for a lot of units, it took a name. Like it took somebody getting hurt or took somebody getting killed in training for us to be like, oh, like this is a real thing. Like this is something that we have to take seriously. And that's like sad to say out loud, is that it takes somebody's name to be plastered on a wall or on a wristband for us to be like, hey, we need to get our stuff together. Yeah. And I've seen that transpire into every organization, because it's part of human nature is I have experience, I have knowledge, I've been doing this for X amount of years, preferably 5, 10, 15. I've been doing this for 25 years. The tendency is to get complacent because nothing's gone wrong and all these things. And, it's easy to see in the military where complacency is. In business, I mean, there's a lot of businesses that they've plateaued. They have it all figured out. There's no possible way that your small company can take over my company, and then it happens overnight. And they're shocked because they're naive that complacency is a thing. Business, it's everywhere. Relationships, at home, it's everywhere. I mean, how I spin this at Echelon Front is I always ask the group, and I'll ask you two guys, think of when you first started dating Amanda.
Yep.
And the priority that she was and the effort that you put in, and think of where you're at now. And I know when I speak to a group on that, everybody looks at me like that's like a dagger. And I hope it is, because I hope they remember and they go home and they're just intentional for a little bit longer. Because when you're complacent in a relationship or in marriage, what tends to happen is you start to neglect them, you start to take them for granted, you don't appreciate them, and in the worst situations, you end up getting divorced because you're not aligned on, hey, we we should be priorities in each other's lives, not just, hey, we're just a thing. We've been married for 30 years, and that's when people fall off. So I think everybody has to be aware of complacency. It's relationships with kids, it's with your spouse, it's at work, it's with your health, it's with your fitness, it's with everything. And if you aren't intentional, if you don't put in, the signs, I know you guys had a sign that said, the enemy thanks you for not giving 100% today.
Yeah.
Like that's a real reminder when you walk out of the door, like, was it close? Typically the answer is no.
Yeah.
And then, hey, I'm going to go back and get after it to make sure that there's no slack allowed, because that is a real threat. And so you have to be intentional, put in reminders. I mean, it's reminders in your phone. It's being aware in the relationships. It's talking to people and saying, hey, we need to make this a priority in our business. I work with a lot with law enforcement, and over the years I've had some individuals where every Friday they will share people that lost their lives in the line of duty.
Interesting.
And so one person on the team, they share this with the rest of the team to share, hey, this is what happens when people can get complacent. Like, we can't allow this to creep in. And so making it intentional, creating buy-in with that, what that will do is that will extend that clock of when complacency comes. And if you stop being intentional, then that clock, it's going to come, and then it's going to be at your doorstep. And complacency in some context, it kills. Complacency in others, it ruins businesses or relationships or whatever context that you live in. Have to be intentional with that.
Yeah. I mean, my story, and for the listeners that don't, I mean, when I got out of the military, I let complacency creep into our marriage, Amanda and I's marriage. And I was just not a good person. And I started playing the victim card. I was self-sabotaging. I was ruining relationships. I was ruining our marriage. And it got so bad to the point where she served me divorce papers. And she didn't serve me divorce papers because I was that loving, awesome husband that she first married, or that guy that was constantly pursuing her. I mean, the amount that I pursued that woman is unreal. I outkicked my coverage with her. It's clear. It's a very apparent thing in all aspects. I mean, not only is she drop dead gorgeous, but just who she is. And anybody that gets to know my wife, they're like, man, she's just a good human. She's very thoughtful. She's very caring. She's very servant-like that's just who she is. And I took that for granted. And I allowed that complacency to creep in my marriage, and she served me divorce papers. And I signed them and gave them back and moved out. And we were completely divorced. And, that's something I briefly talked about, and I will talk about more at another time. Maybe Amanda will come on the podcast and we can talk about it as a couple. I think that could probably be beneficial to a lot of people out there. But yeah, what you're saying, Cody, and that's such a good reminder is like, hey, do you remember what it was like when you first started dating your significant other? And I think that's a great reminder for all of our listeners. And I know I've heard you say it, and we've said it together, working workshops with different companies. Remember what it was like when you first showed up to work. Remember what it was like when you put that ball cap on, or you put on those coveralls, or you put on that uniform, or you put on that company shirt and had the company name on there, and you had your name tag. Like, you remember what that was like. I remember when I first started working at Steve's Pizza off of Fair Oaks and Madison. You remember that place?
Yes, sir.
It's Steve's Pizza. But at the time, you know what? I remember when I got my name tag, I was like, yes.
Best pizza ever.
Oh, yeah, their pizza is incredible. So I don't even think they're any of them around anymore, are they?
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's sad.
So good that they went out of business.
I know. Well, it was either me keep Steve's Pizza alive or join the military. So, I had to leave. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, as silly as that sounds, like, I remember like that name tag, and I'm in high school, and it was just cool. And when I was teaching at Niavaroni's kickboxing, I remember when I got my polo, the kickboxing polo, because that meant I was an instructor. And I'm in high school teaching kickboxing, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. But you let that complacency creep in, and we have to have those reminders. Like, what's a like, you're not gonna have a sign up in your house that says the enemy thanks you for not giving 100% today. I mean, you might. I think it's cool. I might put one up in my garage gym. But like, are there any reminders that you have, like a screensaver or a tattoo or just like something throughout your day?
I was trying to think if I have a tattoo, but not yet. But I have some tattoos.
Actually, it's actually a pretty good reminder. All those tattoos represent your kids.
Yeah, that is true.
It's a good reminder. I mean, I remember this one, this too shall pass, is a reminder of like, hey, bad times are going to pass. However, the good times can pass too. So remain humble. And I remember I got that. It was just like, hey, remain humble. You don't know what's going to happen. And I got that after Ramadi. And then before it was, honor the fallen. And so it's just like little reminders. But is there anything specific,
Yeah, so two things. I know it sounds weird that I didn't remember a tattoo, but I have a bunch. You have a bunch. I have one on my shoulder that says, even through all the darkness, my light will still shine through. So through those hard times, I'll still be there with the aid of God, obviously, to be able to go through that. So that's a complacency reminder, if I can spin it that way.
Yeah.
But I have an alarm in the morning because this is something that we talked about. It's, win the war with complacency every single day. So for me, even though I teach this, I have to remember that it is a thing. It is a tendency. So I have a alarm in the morning at 6:42 that goes off that says, win the war with complacency.
I have war against complacency and live to honor them. Like, and then I'll just, for like random ones, like if I have a work call, it'll say get after it to like remind me for that work call, even though I have calendars in my phone. And then this one is usually I'll set to like, hey, you need to get out the door for jiu-jitsu. And it says earn your purple belt. And so it's just like,
I know it sounds so simple, but simple things work.
Yeah, they work. Speaking of jiu-jitsu, where you at with that pass? I know you just moved. And so, I mean, you trained jiu-jitsu in the military, correct? You had your Marine Corps combatives program.
Yeah, so it's changed over the years. So in the Marine Corps, it's a belt system, just like jiu-jitsu. It's geared towards some other things because, I mean, as you know, in the military, the finishing.
You're a gunfighter.
Yes.
But
so in the Marine Corps, yeah, it's tan, gray, brown, black. I think I'm missing one in there. It's been a while. But I was a black belt in the military. It's not that lengthy of a process. A lot of times they're trying to get guys into positions where they can train others to get them up to speed.
Yeah.
You learn some jiu-jitsu based stuff, a lot of ground fighting. We do boxing and stuff like that. So that was like my baseline. I wrestled as a kid, and so I've had that. And then, being around you guys, obviously with you and Jocko, with jiu-jitsu, it's something that I know I need to be doing, but being honest,
It's a priority thing.
it's a priority thing. Now I can use I hate to say this, but a lot of people would like to use their kids as excuses. And when you have a lot of kids, it's easy to use that excuse. Like for me, I can use the excuse that, hey, well, my kids, I can't do jiu-jitsu. But I mean, we talk about this all the time. It's not that my kids are the problem or that I don't have enough time. It is simply not a priority.
I get it.
And so for me, it's, last year I was gone 225 days. And so when I'm home trying to justify to my wife, like, hey, I'm going to be gone another 2 hours to do jiu-jitsu, it's not in the cards as of right now, but both my sons just started school. And so for me, it's going to give me a little flexibility to be able to go do what I know I should be doing and that I want to do, because I generally want to do it.
Yeah.
And so after October, when it slows down a little bit at work, that's my time to get back in there.
Nice.
I mean, we train at the muster and stuff like that, but it's
Yeah.
few and far between. And there, I'm literally just trying to survive and not die. And luckily, I have a little bit of a baseline where I can survive just a little bit longer.
And
But
he's in really good shape, which also helps. And the other thing is, and I know I said, I get it, and I do, because people will be like, hey, how's your jiu-jitsu? Or like, well, how's training? I love when people are like, man, you work for Jocko, you must train jiu-jitsu all the time. And I'm like, actually, homeboy keeps me pretty busy. Mm-hmm. He keeps all of us busy. And I'm happy to get 1 day a week right now. And the thing for me is I just have to make that a priority, because of it was already ingrained into my schedule in my life. And I'll tell you what, the big thing also, the gym that I train at, 5 here in Highlands Village under Formiga, that's his nickname. Rafael Barbosa is his name, but his nickname is Formiga. I know you know that. Amanda is just completely bought into the gym as well. She loves Elisa, his wife. Our families get along. Our kids get along great. So that's definitely, it's in my benefit, because I'll be like, hey, I'm going to go train. And Amanda's like, cool. And she's coming with me. Or this time she's like, hey, are you going to go train tonight? Hey, you going to go train this morning? And, we have 6:30 a.m. classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I'll go catch one of those occasionally. And we have midday classes every day at noon during the week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, it's gi. Tuesday, Thursday, it's no gi. And then we have evening classes and Saturday. So we have a lot of options at our gym, which helps me. You also just moved to a new area, so you don't, know the area yet. There is a gym that you're going to check out, and we've actually gone and trained there. One of our clients was there for a while, and I know Gustavo, he's awesome. He's a freaking stud. But yeah, the jiu-jitsu, that's a hard one for people that aren't just in it yet, because it's hard to make that priority.
Yes, sir.
Now, the cool thing is, I know your wife's going to be listening to this podcast. I hope so. She said she couldn't wait to listen to her handsome husband on YouTube. But, part of what you and I have been talking about, you training jiu-jitsu is also going to be kind of important for some of the stuff we're going to be doing at Echelon Front with first responders.
Yes, sir.
And to have that baseline of jiu-jitsu training for what we're going to help facilitate and create at Echelon Front for our first responders, it makes it's a different, right? It makes it different to where it's like, hey, now this kind of needs a bigger priority. And it's just cool to see how jiu-jitsu literally has the ability to impact and change people's lives all around. I mean, just the short few amount of times that you've done it, it's a fun thing.
Oh, it's absolutely fun.
Yeah.
And I do want to go back, because we didn't completely finish the priority versus time. I think.
Oh, yeah. That saying, yes.
Well, this saying comes from you, so I'm going to steal it, but I'll give you credit.
Thief.
I think I would argue the biggest excuse that we all make is time, right? It's I don't have time to do this, I don't have time to do that. And we work with a lot of organizations with people in the C-suite, and they're busy people at these FTXs that spend their own money to come here. Like, they're busy people. And so time is the easy excuse to make, because it's something that we can't control, because the clock, it's literally ticking right now. And so if you find yourself using that excuse of time, that's a lie. Because let's be clear what an excuse is. It's a reason that you're not doing what you know you should be doing. So if you noticed when you said it's not a priority, that's the conversation you need to have with yourself. So for this jiu-jitsu, it's not that I don't have enough time, which is hard, because for me and for a lot of people, like, I can justify that. Like, I'm home 5 days this month. I can almost justify that timepiece. But if I'm honest with myself and I say it's not a priority to train jiu-jitsu, or it's not a priority to train my team, that conversation's harder to say, but it's the truthful one.
Yeah.
And I'll give you the most extreme example, and I use this all the time at my workshops, is think of how easy it is for me, who I'm home 5 days this month, when I go home on Saturday for 12 hours to tell my wife, I don't have enough time to do X, to do Y, to do Z. I don't have enough time to spend time with you and the kids during dinner because I have to go do an email or something like this. Like, how easy is that to do? But if I go home and I tell my wife, who's been at home the last 2 weeks with my crazy kids, and I tell her the 12 hours I'm home, it's not a priority to spend time with you and the kids, that's a very different conversation.
Yeah.
That's a go get the comfy pillow out of the closet and you're going to sleep on the couch tonight. And we laugh and we joke, and every time I say that, everybody nods and they get it. But we think it's easy to say it's not a priority, but it's a lot easier to say we don't have enough time. But when you say you don't have enough time, you eventually will never make it a priority.
Yeah.
So you have to have that honest conversation with yourself.
And that comes back to actually taking ownership.
100%.
Like, I don't have time. That's making an excuse. That's literally the opposite of taking ownership. And when you're able to say it's not a priority, you're taking ownership over your schedule, over your calendar, over your life, and literally saying, hey, it's not a priority for what's important to me right now. We were wanting to record this morning. We were texting last night, and I talked to Lucas, and we're like, cool, we're going to record in the morning. You were good with that. Some things had shifted in my calendar, and then I got home last night, and it was just like all these things that was kind of going on at the house, and I was just like, hey, I've got other things I need to deal with for work and around the house and to prepare for stuff that I had to do today. And so instead of us coming and recording this morning, I was like, hey, can we shift it? And both of you guys were like, yeah, that's cool. And it was just, I had to shift those priorities, and luckily we all had the flexibility to be able to do that, because had Lucas not been able to be like, hey, I only have tomorrow morning, I would have then had to reevaluate things and be like, okay, well, what can we shift? What can, where do we create that window that allows us to make this opportunity? You and I did 75 hard together.
Yes, sir.
Phase 1, phase 2, all that stuff together, which was awesome. And I failed to do the actual Live Hard, which is a whole year-long program, because I miscalculated my days on the calendar, and I wouldn't have been able to start phase 3. I started phase 3 a day late.
Ooh.
Yeah, that was rough. If you're not familiar with 75 Hard, you should follow my buddy Andy Frisella. Check it out. I think you can actually go to 75hard.com. But I know for you and I, we were doing it together. It was a game changer.
100%.
And we were busy. Just crazy busy. And for me, the biggest thing I got from 75 Hard was being more intentional with my time management. It wasn't doing something hard like for mental toughness, and it's a mental toughness thing that Andy Frisella created, and him and I talked about it when he was creating it. And his book that he wrote was incredible. I really liked his book 75 Hard. I got a lot out of it. But from when I was talking to him, I was I'm like, bro, I think it's awesome. And he even was just like, dude, you're not, you're a Navy SEAL. Like, you're not going to get the mental toughness out of this. And, and it was cool that, Andy wanted to do this. It wasn't just for himself. It was to help other people to be better humans. And for me, which could be tied into mental toughness, was the understanding of just better time management. And for you and I, with how much we're traveling, we had to be very intentional. Like, I'm talking, hey, I'm going to go from this city to this city to this city. Hey, one of the things is you have to do a 45-minute workout outside. Well, when Codey and I started doing it,
like every day?
So 75 Hard, every day, you have to do 2 45-minute workouts. They cannot be back to back.
Okay.
So there has to be separation.
Right.
And one of them, no matter what, has to be done outside. So no matter what.
Okay, so could it be like a walk or a run or something like
whatever.
that?
Okay. For sure. It could be a walk. If you're just going to do a 45-minute walk, okay,
like
cool.
a mile worth of lunges.
You could do that too.
Yeah. I have a feeling that might take longer.
It takes longer than 45
minutes.
That makes sense.
But yeah, whatever it is, anytime workout. And I remember when I was at home, I did a lot of driveway workouts, right? You bring the stuff out onto the driveway and you're just getting after it in the driveway, because at least you knew, like, hey, I at least got one done outside no matter what. And then whatever else you did later, even if it was another outside one, it was just, you had to be very intentional with your time, your travel, all that stuff. And so we would be looking at our travel and be like, okay, cool, we're going to be in Illinois in January. And so you're packing warm enough clothes where Cody and I remember him and I are just walking. I don't think we said more than 5 words to each other because it was so cold. We had all these layers, beanie, face mask, and gloves, and your hands are in your pocket, and we're just walking with our head down. 23 minutes out, 23 minutes back. And it was just like, we get back, like, stop 46 minutes or go inside. And you're just like, dude, you remember those?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, in Effingham, Illinois.
Yes, sir.
Oh, my gosh.
I think the time, and for me, literally it's neck and neck, is not using my environment as an excuse.
Yes.
It's not that I'm over here, I don't have this sweet, I'm not going to the Lifetime gym every single night. Like I think a lot of people use their environment for reasons not to do stuff, and that removes it all.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you're at, doesn't matter how cold, how hot, like you're going to go outside.
Yeah.
I remember the cold, I remember the storm and rains where Paige is looking at me like, what the heck are you doing? Like, it's like hurricane winds outside. I'm like, yeah, 45 minutes. I'm about to go get some outside.
Yeah.
And
there's times same thing. You and I were laughing because we take a picture of us just in Gore-Tex, putting your phone into a Ziploc bag to put it into your jacket so you could walk with it. And it was just.
Gave me a lot of, speaking of time, gave me a lot of time though during those 45-minute walks to learn a lot through podcasts.
Yes.
From Andy, from Jocko, a lot of stuff out there, which it has always been a priority of mine. But hey, when you set aside 45 minutes a day to be outside, and I know for us with the schedule, it typically was a walk, which I know it doesn't sound like a hard workout, but it's not what it's about. It's about finding time, making time to go do something outside for 45 minutes, removing that excuse.
Yeah. Because the other workouts were hard.
Oh, yeah.
Like the other ones that we did were
It was a recovery
gut
walk.
checks. That 45 minutes was because our buddy, now that Justin Blythe works for us at Echelon Front, and that was before you knew him, my buddy Justin, he owns 360 Fitness here in Keller, Texas, and he had a whole program for me that I followed during 75 Hard, and it was, bro.
Yeah, I've seen y'all's workouts. I'm not interested.
I actually know that is not true.
That is right. Yeah, I'm interested. I'm fascinated that y'all can pull it off. That's what the truth is.
And that was the cool thing for me for 75 Hard, and it was going to war with that complacency was definitely achieved during that. And so you do those 2 workouts. One has to be done outside. They cannot be back to back. So you can't do a workout, hang out for 5 minutes, and then go. No, it's like there's got to be legit separation between it. Read 10 pages a day, which was awesome, which I really liked. I started reading About Face by Colonel Hackworth, one of Jocko's favorite books, that he talks about so much to the point that they republish it because that many people were ordering the book, and these people were like, why is this book written in the 80s selling so many copies? They started pulling the thread, realized it was because of Jocko's podcast. Then they reached out to him and they're like, hey, we're going to republish this book.
That's awesome.
Would you like to be a part of it? And then he wrote the foreword to it, which was pretty awesome. And so,
that's sick.
Yeah, pretty amazing. So I started reading that book, which was incredible. And then you have to pick a strict diet, not just, well, if it fits within my macros. Because we all know that lie that we tell to ourselves. Hey, I can eat these 3 slices of pizza because it fits my macros. And you're like, dude, what? No. So no sugar, no candy, no soda because you have a strict diet,
right?
Which was awesome.
Gallon of
water a day. No alcohol. Anything else?
I think that's it.
Yeah. And then phase 1, there's more to it. Phase 2, there's different things as well.
Wow.
I think phase 1 is what the cold showers, right?
Showers.
And then ice cold, 5-minute ice cold, 5-minute cold shower every single day with all these other things. Dude, it's awesome. It's just go try it, man. If you're listening to this and you're like, what? Go try it. And I know you and I, we've created a couple challenges as well. You and I created one it was right before 75 Hard came out. Remember that?
Yes, sir.
We had talked, Cody and I were talking through some stuff because we're like, dude, it was mostly me going, hey, bro, I need to get back on the path. Like, I need your help. I would like some accountability. And so we created this program, and it was legit. I mean, we'll share it one time. And, but it was funny. We were coming up with it, and we were both doing it. And then that's when Andy reached out to me about 75 Hard. I was like, oh, so. And I was like, well, yours is much more thought out. It wasn't that ours wasn't thought out. It was just, it was a legit gut check.
It was a lot.
It was a lot to actually do.
Yeah.
And his was very difficult, but it was doable. And Andy's program is freaking outstanding, man. I know a lot of people that have legitimately changed their life around with 75 hard. So, anyways, I know that's something that we've both done to work with that complacency. Now, I know you're super humble, Codey, and you say it wasn't that big of a deal. You didn't do much. The fact that you did something in this location is incredible. I've always thought it was a very interesting story. You know, are you comfortable talking a little bit about how the Benghazi attacks affected your career in the military and where you were at? And when you found out about it, what were you doing? And then what was next for you?
Yeah, so in late 2011, I was out in Virginia with a team. That was my first duty station out in Norfolk. And we got forward deployed over to Rota, Spain. So there's a big Navy base over there. And I can tell you at 1920, being forward deployed to Spain is a pretty cool thing. Got to travel a lot of countries out there, and we're into 2012 now. And while we're in Spain, I get to go train with a lot of foreign militaries. Get to go train with the Israeli Defense Force, which was really cool.
That's awesome.
I was one of the snipers for our platoon, and we got to train with Israeli snipers, and they're all female. Which was interesting. And there's also a lot of Americans that are in the Israeli Defense Force, which I found was unique. Granted, this is 2012, so times have probably changed. But got to train a lot with foreign militaries up there. And then as we're about to leave Rota and go back to Virginia, this is September 2012, a bunch of embassies were attacked around the world. And for us, being out there, we weren't really sure what was going on. We do all these contingent, like, oh, hey, you need to be ready, go pack your go bag, like you're going to leave. And we did that over and over and over again to the point where like we're never going anywhere, like this is dumb. And I remember being in the barracks there and just watching the news in the barracks room with everybody up there, and we're seeing what's going on. We're like, holy cow, like this is crazy. Then eventually, like, hey, get your go bags. Like this isn't a drill. That common saying, like, oh, this is no crap. This is happening. So we get our go bags. We're trying to figure out what's happening because all these embassies are attacked. Get our go bags, and eventually they're like, hey, in about an hour, like we're gonna go down to Libya, go down to Benghazi, where Ambassador Stevens was killed. So this was September 11th, 2012. I just turned 21. 12 days prior. Yeah. So I'm 21, figuring out the Marine Corps, and then a couple hours later we find ourselves down in Benghazi, where obviously if you know anything about the news or followed that story, Ambassador Stevens was killed, and the SEAL down there, correct?
Yeah.
Tyrone Woods.
Yeah, he was one of my SQT instructors.
Yes, sir. A couple other individuals where they sent a sign of distress for more assets, more resources. They didn't end up getting it, and there was consequences for that action. So Ambassador Stevens, a couple of the people were killed, and as we got down to Libya, there's 35-ish Marines from my platoon, and that's it. So we take the 130s down there, we get off the plane, and at 21, it's a mess. Like I have no idea what's happening, and I'll talk about the common theme that I learned throughout that. I won't get to it yet, but I'm really confused. Everybody's really confused. We're questioning what's going on. I mean, on the plane down there, are we full kit? Like, are we low vis? And we changed the plan like 17 times on the plane, and everybody's frustrated because nobody knows what's going on. Better yet, nobody's asking the questions. And so as we land, and there's like 17 souped up black SUVs, bulletproof, like the whole 9 yards. And we're like this is like my first time like in an arena like this. I was like, this is freaking awesome. And so we get in these cars and we're like roaming through the city, and dudes are just smashing cars out of the way because it's chaotic. Like the riots there, like people are in the streets.
Things are burning.
Things are on fire, and we're just trying to get to a location just on a map. Like, hey, you need to get here. And so people are just smashing through cars, and eventually we can't go to the embassy because it's burnt down to the ground, and there's still, the rioters that are there. And so we push up northwest to another compound where they deem like, hey, this is the next location. They call it the annex. And so up here, it's a neighborhood of about, I'd say like 12 to 15 buildings. So a neighborhood up here northwest of where Benghazi happened. And so they deem this is going to be the next embassy location. Because you have to think, like, once the embassy attack happened, everybody that survived, like, they just went onto the town. And there's like nowhere for them to go. There's no safe haven because the embassy is the safe haven. So they're just out in the streets trying to survive.
Just hiding?
Hiding. And so this new location was the new safe haven. So when we roll in, we clear this compound, and eventually everybody that's part of that embassy, troop, they come back to us. And for the next 4 months, we hold a static defensive position on those 15 buildings, which was cool for me because I'm 21. I'm a COG, a corporal of the guard, so I'm in charge of 12 guys every single day. You got a lot of 3-letter agencies up there. Got to work with those guys, which I'm 21, working with really old people who are like 32 years old, learning a lot of what they're doing.
Do they have any of those really old 40-year-olds there?
The guys with the gray hair, right? And so being able to talk with them on, the rooftop, seeing what they're doing, seeing the training that they're doing, just having those conversations was really cool. You had a lot of interrogations on the compound while they built a new wall around our thing where we're providing security for these, we really don't know who they are, but we know we can trust them. And so our leadership is saying, hey, you're going to provide security while they go interrogate this person who's coordinating these attacks. So there's a lot of threats on what we were doing. There was a lot of riots going on in the area, but for the most part, it was a security mission where we're trying to keep everybody that was from the old embassy safe in this new compound, which was really cool to be a part of. And then after 4 months, we got replaced by another unit, and the biggest thing that I learned from that deployment was understanding the benefit of the why. Because for me at 21, I was always flustered and frustrated by not knowing what's going on and not being told the why, when in reality, I never asked the why. And what I learned specifically in the military and what's translated to the business life is, hey, when the team's not aligned on the why, like it creates a bad situation. Because me on the ground, first, my captain, who's my platoon commander, I'm coming up with my own why. When he has his why, which is the truth, and my why is not even on the same page. And sadly, in the military, in the Marine Corps, when you have troops on the ground that are coming to their own why, they start questioning, the mission, and they start questioning the leadership. And when you're questioning the mission and questioning the leadership, your ability to effectively or efficiently accomplish the mission starts to diminish. It starts to go out of the window. And so that was really a harsh lesson for me after the fact is, I was put in a position of leadership. I was a person that people looked to, even though we were peers at one point, and my inability to ask those questions, it created a bad situation where people couldn't have conversations, we couldn't ask questions, and there was a disconnect. And hey, when you're disconnected, when you're not aligned, shoot, in the Marine Corps and the SEAL teams, Starbucks, it doesn't matter. When you're not aligned as an organization, things tend to fall apart. And so for me, that was a hard lesson learned, but I'm thankful for it because now I get to share that with people because the why is a huge thing. I mean, you work with law enforcement, you work with CEOs, like when you don't communicate that why to the team, like things fall apart. They'll come to that own why, and that why and your why typically aren't even on the same wavelength. And that's when things get lost in translation. So it was a really cool experience for me. I still remember a lot of the guys that I was with back then, which I know was only, 11 years ago. But at 21, man, it was a really cool experience.
That's it's a really cool experience. I don't think like the age, like for anybody, right? But especially when you're 21, to be able to learn those lessons firsthand. And to feel those things real time. I couldn't imagine. I have an idea because I've been able to do some pretty unique things, but I can only imagine. Like as you're telling me, like we get in these SUVs and we're driving through the city trying to get to this place and things are still on fire and the people are rioting. Like you just had to have been sitting there thinking like, holy crap, like this is it. Like this is what I've been training for. And then you start to kind of, did you reflect on your training and think about, man, like, am I good to go? Have I trained hard enough? Did you have that confidence that most Marines do because you guys know that you train hard and you take those things serious?
Eventually, yes. Initially, it's that surreal feeling and you're unsure. And then, as we're driving, the thought and just the reflection of what you've been through as a team or as an individual, it solidifies the thoughts that you have. So I start to question myself and I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm actually ready because we just trained for 9 months. Or, hey, this is going to be a compound. Well, we just came through an advanced urban combat where for 4 months straight, we learned how to clear buildings. So the reflection during the time and on the flight, like if I was questionable or wasn't confident, like it was solidified, like in a thought, like, no, I'm ready. Because as you know, like you have to be confident, not cocky in
Yes.
those situations, but confident. Because if you're not confident in your abilities, like your ability to perform, you start to question your decisions and things don't typically pan out. So yes, absolutely. That time to reflect, which it was a long flight, and the drive, if I was questioning myself, it was quick, like, nope, you're ready. Like you're more than ready due to what you've been through. So it came after that surreal, like, what are we doing to, I can't wait for when we get there.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, you know, a lot of people, I know you've heard them ask this, and we've talked about it. People wondering if we were afraid or scared in Ramadi, and the answer is always like, no. Like, we weren't afraid. I didn't fear those enemy fighters. I respected them because I knew what they were capable of, but I was confident in my training. And we were hunting evil people, literally hunting down evil people that were doing horrific things to innocent people, to women and children, and, you know, and also to men and boys that didn't comply, and just like disgusting, evil, vile things that you knew about. And you're like, I have no problem hunting these guys down. And I have no problem helping the innocent Iraqi families have some sense of peace again. And I know that had to have been in your mind, because it's okay to be a little nervous. Were we nervous when we were headed to Ramadi? Absolutely. Nerves are a good thing, you know.
Yes, sir.
You know, we've talked about this, like, I've talked with Jocko, and he sent me those texts, like, when Aiden's competing, like, nerves are, hey, that's the way God designed us, right? It prepares your body for war and combat, and makes sure you're at this heightened state so you're ready. Just don't be fearful. You know, you think about what David did in the Bible. Just the confidence that he had. He wasn't afraid of Goliath. Like, when he found out what was happening, he was like, whoa, hold on. You guys going to let this guy talk to us like this? And then he just, you know, which I'd love for us to dive into in the future for sure.
Yeah.
But it's just that he had that confidence because of his quiet and his alone time with the Lord, singing praises, writing praises. That was his training. His quiet, alone time with the Lord, seeking the Lord, praising the Lord, was his form of training that prepared him to slay Goliath. And it's so important that we as humans find time to prepare ourselves mentally and physically for what life's going to bring to us. And that's what I've heard you say, like, is just preparing you. You're very adamant about preparing yourself mentally and physically for whatever might come your way. Not if, it's a when. And so with that being said, what's next for you? Is there any like big competitions or anything big that you're wanting to do that, you know, maybe you haven't shared these thoughts with anybody yet because they make you a little nervous because now you're putting yourself out there and making a commitment? Like, what are you training for? And if it's just life, like, I get it. There's a lot of people just training for life, but is there anything out there that you're just like, man, I'd like to go do this?
It's some very good questions. And I know part of this and what I've learned, I think it's crucial to share, you know, your goals, what you're trying to achieve, and outside of just the conversations with yourself.
Yes.
So when you only have it with yourself, then you start to lie to yourself. And so now there's a sense of peer accountability, which I think peer accountability is the best form of accountability that you have, because now you have a other person that sees, you know, what you're doing and who you are. Yeah. So I think, you know, a bunch of different ways I can take this. I think, you know, on the fitness level, you know, as much as I'd love to like compete in the CrossFit, you guys saw me try to touch my toes. That's not going to happen. I like CrossFit because wherever I go, whoever I'm with, if they want to do something, I feel like I'm ready. Like, hey, you want to go row a marathon? I'm like, cool, I'm down. You want to go run a marathon? I mean, I'm down, I'll try it. And so with CrossFit, I always feel like regardless of who I'm with, wherever I'm at, whatever their ability is, like, I'm able to at least hang due to what I've been trying to prepare for. So that's why I love CrossFit. And so I'm always going to keep trying to do that. To when JP's like, hey, we're going to do 600 reps of chest this week, I'm like, heck yeah, like, I'm ready, which JP's never done that before, but
I'd never give myself rhabdo for my chest workout.
That's a true statement. I mean, not once, but multiple times. But.
Yep,
I did.
Yeah, no doubt.
I gave myself rhabdo from just a chest workout. Cody was making fun of me. Anyways, I'm sorry. Go ahead, bud.
No, and I think at Echelon Front, obviously, the FTX program, being able to work with you, Jocko, Carlos, you know, the rest of the team, it's the greatest honor, privilege that I've ever had, and so I know, as we all know, that you have to earn that seat every single day. And so growing out the FTX program, to be able to have more people from all walks of life come to our training, because it is life-changing. And not just the FTX training, but Echelon Front training training in itself, it's extremely powerful.
Yeah.
In addition, I know Danny, Zeem, and I were working on the first responder side because with my father being a police officer, law enforcement, first responders, the direct connection to the military is something that we obviously care about, growing that program to reach more individuals. I think last year I worked with 50 departments, and is like that sounds like a lot, but I don't think it's enough. Like I want to be out there working with more first responders to get them, the training that they deserve, because in these times, like, if anybody needs leadership training or training in general, it's those that hold the line.
Yeah.
Not that they don't have their own, but leadership training from a different perspective, it is beneficial. And so Danny and I are looking to grow that in all aspects. And then I'd say my, not a life goal, but something down the road. I'm really passionate about being a parent, and whenever I teach anybody, I always like to spin stuff on the parenting side or the family dynamic, because it's half of what you do. Your work is only typically half of it. The other half is your family. And so I think eventually I'd like to write a book, and I know I said the title yesterday. It goes by fast, leading your family, because the most common feedback I get from any parent that's older than me is, hey, it goes by fast, like, be prepared. And even now, like, talking with Jack Hill on our team, who just had a son, like, what I tell him all the time is, like, yeah, he's small, like, he's not crawling yet, but it goes by fast. Like, don't waste the time that you have. And so I'd love to share, and my thought is I'm going to gather insight from everybody at Echelon Front, because majority of us are parents, on sharing a parental perspective of leading your family, because leading a team in the corporate environment and leading your family, it's the same concepts, except leading your family, it's a little tougher due to those relationships. You have spouses, the feelings are different, the emotions are heightened, and with your kids, your kids know what buttons to push, just as your spouse knows what buttons to push. And so I'd love eventually, after I'm done, I know you never stop raising your kids, but once my kids are eventually all 18, to share some of the lessons that I've learned, that we've learned at Echelon Front, to pass those on to people that have kids or they're going to have kids down the road.
That's awesome. Any closing thoughts?
My last thought, and it's more of a we always try to, when you end a speech, it's to leave like a challenge on the table, like a lasting thing, like for people in the crowd, people in the audience. I'll say, for everybody that's listening, or everybody that's going to listen to this down the road, is to understand how much control you have. And so I think for a lot of us, we like to blame external things in our life. We like to blame our situations. We like to blame our environment. We like to blame the cards dealt to us. And we feel that we're powerless and we have no control. And, you tell me all the time, we have more control than we realize. And that stems down to our ability to control our emotions, our attitude, our actions, our ability to take ownership. Like, those things, they're absolutely crucial. And if you can't take ownership of those, if you give those away, then you will be helpless. You won't have the ability to make a decision or to move forward. And so I think just being aware that that is a thing and that you have more power than you give yourself, that will allow you to solve a lot of the problems that you face. And that's with your faith, that's with your family, that's with your business, is that those things, nobody can take those away from you. Nobody can take away your ability to take ownership. No one can directly change your attitude or your emotions. They can influence you, but at the end of the day, you have the final say. And so we have the final say in a lot more things than we think, when in reality, a lot of us just like to blame those things and we don't do anything about it. The problem is, if you're always blaming stuff, eventually, like, nothing's ever going to change, and you're just going to be in this miserable place where everybody's out to get me. Just because something bad happens to you, just because you're a victim, doesn't mean you have to stay a victim.
Yeah.
You have the ability to change. You can take ownership of what you do next. So I know a lot of people are going through a lot of stuff, and that's not going to change. Everybody's going to go through something in life, and so don't underestimate the power that you have. That would be my last thought.
What questions do you have for Codey?
So I'm going to limit it to two. The first one that I've got, going back to the situation in Benghazi, you were talking about how much confusion there was on the plane on the way there and the gear and that kind of stuff. Do you think that led some of the people who were participating with you guys to question the why more, because there seemed like there was such a lack of a plan? And how can we in organizations, if that is the case, how can we communicate a plan better so that it doesn't cause others to question the why?
So I think for me, what it came down to is, we didn't ask the questions, so we were jumping to the worst possible situation. So that wasn't helping. I think what it stems down to is, hey, as that subordinate in that situation, I needed to try to gain perspective on what my bosses were going through. They'd never been in a situation like this. They weren't up there like, yeah, let's tell the team what they don't want to hear. Let's try to sabotage the mission. Like, they're going through the same situation as us. So if I would have put myself in their shoes, it would have gave me the ability to see, like, what they need right now is not a bunch of disgruntled like E4s and E5s like questioning what they're doing. What they need is some help. And so, I've learned this from JP. My job as a subordinate in the Marine Corps and my job in this realistic situation where JP's my boss is to take stuff off his plate. So however, my relationship, the stronger the relationship I have with my boss, which JP's my boss, the more I can see what stuff I can take off of his plate. And that's what should have happened on that flight there, is I see that my bosses are overwhelmed. They're a little confused. I need to stand up and say, hey, what do you guys need? How can I help? Hey, let me rally the troops and explain, like, hey, we don't know what we're doing right now, but when we do know something, we will pass that on. So I think there's power in that. But that does scare a lot of people because, hey, that means more work for me. Mm-hmm. Well, the reality is if my boss, JP's down here in the weeds and the X's and O's, like, he's not able to do his job. Like, his job is to be up and out. It's not in the tacticalness of what's going on. His job is to be up and out, strategic in everything that he does. And this JP will laugh when I say this, but when JP comes to an FTX, like tomorrow when he gets there, like, I don't want him to do anything. Like, I don't allow him to do anything. And I know this, and everybody on my team below me knows this, all 8 of us. When JP's around, like, he's not allowed to do anything. Like, no loading the guns, no moving stuff around. Like, I want him to be talking to clients, thinking up and out, thinking about debrief points. Like, that's his job. Like, he's the CTO at Echelon Front, the Chief Training Officer. And so for him, strategic is the name of the game. And so I think whether it's on the plane or at work and everything in life, it doesn't just have to be a subordinate to the boss. Back at home, my job with Paige is to take stuff off her plate so that me and her can be aligned. And so for me, it's just trying to gain perspective, which perspective is hard. We typically only listen to and think about our own perspective, but our perspective is flawed because it's only from one side. Like, in the context of this room right here, there are 3 perspectives, but the tendency is I only care about my own. When in reality, like, you can see that door, I can't see that door. JP can see that camera, I can't see that camera. So if I don't take in those perspectives, think of all the things that I could miss. I miss what you're seeing, what you're feeling, all these resources, all these tools, all these assets, all because I'm so stubborn. I only listen to my own perspective on what's going on. So I think perspective is key on that plane, in this room, at Echelon Front, and everything that we do.
I think that's the idea of perspective is a big thing, and I can't imagine what it's like for you not being able to do stuff.
It's really frustrating. It makes me very upset. So I'll mess with them and I know they know this. I don't care. I'll say it, and even if they don't, it's gonna be a while before they hear this episode. Right. But I'll watch them until they're working on other stuff, and then I'll go grab like the trash. And I'll like start running with a trash can and go dump it. And then
this is a real thing. And
I'll hear just behind me, and they're like trying to catch me to grab the garbage.
That's awesome.
Before I get to the dumpster. It's just like, it's a fun little game. But I mean, Codey is spot on in what he said, and it's what he does. He practices what he preaches. He does it, and he does it not just because it's like, hey, this is what you should do at Echelon Front. He does it because it's the right thing to do. And guess what? The things that we do at Echelon Front are the right things to do because we do what we tell people to do.
Yeah.
And, when he does that, I'm literally able to be more strategic of talking with the client, developing that relationship, which Codey knows. If I'm talking to somebody at an individual FTX and learning about their company and helping them work through some problems, there's a higher likelihood that they say, hey, you should come do this for my whole company.
Yeah.
And then guess what that means for Codey? More work, which means stability, which means income for his family, which helps the FTX team, because the more FTXs we do, these guys that help with FTXs, it's more work for them.
Yeah.
Which is, what we all need. And so it's it's awesome.
Yeah, and it does come down to the why.
Yep.
Right? The reason that we're doing this and allowing you to build relationships is because when you do that, it means, all the, what is it? The high tide raises all boats.
Yep.
Right? That same kind of thing. So my second question has to do with the conversation around the 75 hard. Right? Is that people say they don't have enough time. How how do you handle somebody? And this is from a pastoral perspective, this is one of my biggest frustrations. So somebody's like, I don't have enough time to serve at the church. I don't have enough time to have like my daily devotion or something like that. I'm like, well, you just told me you binge watched 7 seasons of Grey's Anatomy this weekend. What are you talking about? You don't have enough time. How do you, I think there are times when I can be a little bit more blunt than that, because the people that we're talking about in our congregation and those kinds of things, they're not clients. Right. A lot of people who are listening to this podcast are going to be dealing with clients that tell them the same thing. Hey, I don't have enough time for this meeting, or I don't have enough time, maybe with some of the subordinates, in order to handle the things that you've given me. But they do have, like we said, all these excuses. How do you gracefully show somebody where the holes in their schedule are that they've filled with non-priority items?
So I would say 2 or 3 things. So the first one is, the perfect answer to this, and like the perfect course of action would be, you ask the right questions, you show the mirror, and they come to this conclusion on their own. Like that's what you want, and why you want that is, now it's not Lucas's idea that I need to do this. Now it's their own idea, and we all should be aware that one's own intuition on what they're doing, if it's their idea, the likelihood of it sticking, it's a lot more than, well, JP told me to do this, or Lucas told me, or my boss or my spouse told me to do this. And when something goes wrong, which it typically always does, then it's an easy scapegoat. Like, oh, that was JP's plan, like that sucked, I don't want to do it again. But when it's my own plan, when it's my idea, like I need to do this, and now I hit a roadblock, then it's like, oh, well, you know what? I can go over here now, and then I can do this. So that's the perfect scenario. I would suggest how you get to that perfect scenario is asking earnest questions. So earnest questions, shocker alert, it's about trying to gain perspective on why they're doing something for that particular reason. These aren't leading questions. These aren't trying to get answers that you want to hear. You're genuinely asking questions because you want to know why they're making those decisions. So earnest questions is the first part. Additionally, is sharing the consequences of their actions, showing, hey, if you keep on this path, if you keep doing this, these are the consequences associated to that. So if you want to have a better relationship with the Lord, well, when you watch 7 hours of TV, that's not going to happen. And sometimes, depending on that relationship, the stronger the relationship, I'll say the harsher the tone, but the more severe the consequences you can show them. But with no relationship, like you can't have that conversation. And the last thing I'll say is that relationship piece, because I want you to think about this. The words that we say, they can change depending on the relationship that you have. So if JP and we have no relationship whatsoever, right? And I'm just a listener to this, and I text JP, I was like, JP, like that episode, it sucked. Like you said a bunch of wrong words, you were making stuff up, like your shirt's way too small and all this stuff, like I'm attacking him. Sorry,
there's an XL. What do you want? I hate you.
I'm just jealous because I wear a medium.
Yeah, right.
But if I have no relationship, like how is JP going to take that?
Not well,
right?
Yeah.
I'm going to be attacking him, right? And I'll take the joking stuff out, like, hey, JP, if you should have said this instead of this. If you made this transition, like, it would have been a little more tighter. No relationship, JP's that's an attack on his ego.
Yeah.
But if I have a really good relationship, how does that conversation potentially come off? It comes off that I care about him. If JP and I are really close, and I'm like, hey, JP, man, if you just said this, like, man, it would have been so powerful, you couldn't connect the dots. Same words from the same person, but a totally different spin. Now it's a deposit into this relationship. Now I'm showing JP that I care, and when I say something where it's coming from a caring perspective, the likelihood of him implementing it is through the roof. When it's an attack on the ego, they don't care. They're not going to talk about it. They're not going to take it in. And that all stems down to that nature of the relationship. So I would say step 1, which typically is part of every answer that we give, is, hey, what's the status of that relationship? Step 2 would be earnest questions, gain perspective on why they're making those decisions. And then step 3 is share the consequences associated with those decisions. And you want to make those connections personable, because if you can understand their why, like, why are they doing this? Like, why do they want to have this relationship? You can connect that consequence to that why, and that why will be glowing, it will be gleaming, and they can see that, like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. So the hard part about all that is, that's like a 4-step process. A lot of the answers that we give, they're not like cookie cutter overnight things. You're trying to change like somebody's like way of life. Like when they get done with work, what they're going to do, like you're trying to change that, like their cozy, comfy time. You're trying to, hey, don't do that. You need to do this. Like that's really hard to do. So with that, and with everything that we talk about at Echelon Front, like it's a campaign. It's an absolute campaign. And if you're aware with that, then it's actually okay. Because I would argue that if I want something to change and it's going to be worth it, it's actually going to take a lot of time. Stuff that happens overnight, well, typically I'm going to fall back because I didn't earn it. I didn't earn that change. So that would be my recommendation.
All of your answers bring up more questions for me, right? The only other one that I would want to ask is in that scenario, right? So we've done everything. We've held up the mirror. Like, when do I know, especially because the depth of the relationship or the longer the relationship lasts, marriage and family stuff aside, is when do you hit the eject button? When do you say, like, all right, this is a buddy of mine. We started this thing together. We've worked really hard on it. And as time has progressed, you know, I've gotten to the point where I'm holding up the mirror. They are able to clearly, like, see the issue, but they're unwilling to change it. Like, at what point do you say, hey, it's time to sever this relationship?
It's when you don't feel bad about it.
Wow. Unpack that a little bit. Yeah.
It's not because you don't feel bad about it because you're just this like heartless person.
Right.
It's because you know that you've done everything. You've asked all the right questions. You've shown them the mirror, like you said, multiple times. You've approached it in multiple different angles, and you just know it's like an escalation of counseling that people do when somebody at their company screws up. It's like, hey, you're late for work. I'm not firing you for the first time you're late for work. I'm going to say, hey, Lucas, we start at 8. I know you got here at 8:07. Is there a reason why you were late? And you're like, yeah, man, I hit traffic. I'm like, all right, cool. No big deal. Hey, next time, could you let me know ahead of time? But remember, we start at 8 because it's when the shift starts. And everyone else was here early and ready to go. And we all got to work at 8. So just remember, we got to start at 8. If it happens again, I'm going to have to write you up. And you're never late again, no big deal. But next week, you're late again. I'm like, hey, Lucas, like we just talked about this last week, and I obviously wasn't clear enough, and I'm sorry. Because I thought I reiterated the fact that we start at 8. I wasn't clear on that. Like, this is how, like Codey was saying, this is how it impacts the team. By you being late, it causes A, B, and C of a negative impact to the company and to the team. And, I'm going to have to write you up. You remember we talked about this last week. And you're like, yeah, hey, sorry, I got a flat tire on the way to work, and I just, had to change it. And I'm like, okay, well, hey, if it happens again, like, I'm going to have to write you up again and send you home without pay for the day. And I don't want to do that because I know that would negatively impact your family. So there's this gradual, like, escalation. It's the same thing when you're talking to somebody who's like, yeah, I want to get closer with God, but, I just, and then they make all these excuses. And initially you're like, oh, hey, you just need to be a little more mindful of it. And hey, I get it. And then the next time you're like, hey, man, I know you said you watch Grey's Anatomy a lot. I love that show. And they're like, yeah, it's great. And you're like, hey, do you think maybe you could, instead of watching 5 episodes, you could watch 4 and then have a little more time to spend some time in the Bible? Like, would that make sense? And they're like, yeah, that would make sense. So it's these gradual little, you're able to increase it. Because the goal, like Codey was saying earlier, is like, we don't want to be super direct with people. Like that my goal as a leader is to not be direct. And so we get to that point where it's just this gradual increasing of escalation of whether it's counseling for somebody who's making mistakes or, somebody that you have to make the decision like, hey, I actually can't stay in business with this person, or I can't maintain this friendship. And sometimes it's faster than others because, you've got to look at what that impact is going to be to your family and your life. And how do you judge that? I mean, is it like, hey, if this is going to have a massive negative impact over my family, like, hey, we're done. If it's going to, make things awkward for me, I can work through that. I mean, that's what you're alluding to.
Yeah, that's part of it.
I mean, and Codey's answer is, that's the answer. Now you have to find the way to get to, well, okay, you know what? I've tried everything. I don't feel bad. Now I'm just, hey, you know what? It doesn't mean that you're not going to have a hard conversation.
Right.
Because if you're cutting ties with somebody, you're going to have that hard conversation. Codey gave that framework for it of, hey, this is the framework for having these hard conversations, like the impact, the problem, the impact, you're taking ownership of that as well. And then the solution, and sometimes the solution is, hey, like, you just can't seem to get here on time for work. And I know it's hard for you, but you're actually taking away from the rest of the team by showing up late. This is the impact that it's had. And, I appreciate the last 3 years that you've been working here. It's been awesome, but you're no longer going to be a part of the team.
Yeah.
And that sucks. But when you're in a leadership position, you have to have those hard conversations.
I like the idea that, it's when you don't care anymore, because there is so much of like the emotion behind some of those conversations, especially when, you hired a friend or you brought on somebody who you had a relationship with and you're like, oh, I'm so excited that we get to work with this person. And, by the fourth or fifth conversation, you're like, you know what? It doesn't bother me that we're going to be sitting down in this room together, which means that I'm going to get to that point of apathy in a relationship. And apathy is the opposite of affection, right? It's not like hate is not the opposite of love. Apathy is because it means I've got no feelings for them at all. And that idea that like I'm going into this room and I'm numb to what's happening is a great indicator that, hey, it's time to go, because I don't care whether or not this person shows up. Their effect on the team is now a no factor for me. It's time to bring in somebody else who can. I really, really love that concept. I think it's really powerful.
Yeah, I would love Codey's insight on this as well. So to what Lucas was saying, what advice would, because we have a lot of clients that we work with that start businesses with their friends.
Yeah.
And, one of the things, before you and I started this podcast, we had multiple conversations about alignment and expectations and standards and what we needed from each other and what we wanted to obtain from the podcast. And the purpose of the podcast was create value. Like, that was the purpose. Like, not trying to be Jocko, not trying to be Joe Rogan, not trying to be Sean Ryan or any of these great podcasts that are out there. Not doing it because it's like, hey, podcasts are the cool thing. It's like, no. This is a platform to provide value based off of what we do at Echelon Front, what I get to learn working at Echelon Front, to share my experiences, to share my faith, and to further the kingdom. Mm-hmm. Like, that's what we are going to do with this podcast. Yeah. That's what I've told Codey, and I've told a lot of people that I've told, and everyone's like, dude, that's awesome. And then Codey being our first guest, with him being like my right-hand man at Echelon Front, it's like everything that we do together and growing the company, it was very, for me, honoring to have Codey as our first guest, because it's what he's been helping me do at Echelon Front. And now we get to do this with the podcast. But Lucas, you and I had a lot of conversations.
Oh, for sure.
And we delayed this a few months because it was like, no, we're not rushing into this.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ruin our friendship. Because you also host our Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu podcast. And I'm like, okay, Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu podcast, that ministry we created and the podcast that came from it is incredibly impactful, and I know you follow it and you've listened to it, and you see the other people that post it and share it, and there's like, okay, wait, hold on, now we have a few things that are connected. And then with what I do with the Little Cattle Co., Stephen Little's my best friend, invested in and partnered with him on his business, Little Cattle Co. Same thing with Josh and I on the path printing. Well, you look at it also, like, what about with Jocko and Leif bringing me on board Echelon Front?
Right.
One of their bros, like, as Jocko was like, hey, bro, you've been my bro forever. But I'm able to understand the importance of separation and setting expectations and standards and open communication. So to piggyback on your question, if you don't mind, I want to ask Codey, what advice do you have to our listeners of, hey, I'm starting a business, or I want to start a business, or I'm in business with one of my friends or my best friend or a close partner, like, from what you've seen over the years, consulting for multiple companies and doing strategic advising and coaching to executives and, helping all different types of organizations be better leaders and implement these principles. What advice would you have for people that are in business with friends?
So I think what you touched on is partially my answer. It's the expectations, it's the standards, it's having that conversation, because I think a lot of people are uncomfortable with having that conversation, and they just do this, hey, let's have a business, and they shake hands, and then they go on their way.
They just assume that
they just assume. And the problem with assumptions, I don't even need to say the cliche statement, but it typically leads to bad things. And so having a upfront conversation, laying stuff on the table, not having a backdoor conversation, it puts stuff out there. Because potentially down the road, there's going to be some conflict within your team, within that partnership. Yeah. And if you're just trying to, hey, let's think about why we started this, and you don't have any framework, you don't have like a paper trail, and you're just trying to remember the conversation you had 13 years ago. Like, good luck with that. Yeah. So,
or even 3 months ago.
Yeah.
I barely remember what I talked about yesterday. And so having, written expectations, standards, like what we're doing, why we're doing it, and all the stuff you need to know on why you're doing something, I would have a physical paper trail on that, because potentially you're going to need it down the road. I would also say, if you're about to get into business, business just adds a new dynamic to a relationship. Just because you and I are friends before, you add business, you add the stress of making money, providing both of our families, like it adds a new context to it. We talk about iterative decision making at Echelon Front. If you have the ability to test something out before you get to that product, it's going to be beneficial. So I think, to the point of how this podcast was created with Lucas, is you did Jesus in Jiu-Jitsu before, and so you may have not thought of it that way, but the Jesus in Jiu-Jitsu podcast platform, that was a step to see, hey, is Lucas the right fit? Yeah, like what he produces and in the studio, everything involved, like, is it the right fit? And had it not been, like, you would have known before you jumped in the deep end. Yeah. So that's what iterative decision making is all about. It's putting your toe in the water, understanding, oh, this is what's going on. It's not jumping in the deep end with all your resources, then realizing like, oh, JP and I, this was a bad fit, but now I just wasted, $100,000 on this new thing. We have a conversation. We start, a soft launch. We do something like this. There's minimal risk involved because I'm just testing the waters. And then things start to look good. JP's a good business partner. I take a small step in the right direction. Hey, I'm going to invest X amount. You invest X amount. It seems like we're both okay. I take another step. We have this expectations call. JP starts to push back. He wants 90% and only gives me 10%. Now I know before I get to the deep end, oh, this isn't going to pan out. Yeah. And so those iterative small steps, it shows you the pathways of potentially getting to that end site, which is a successful business partnership that's going to be, effective and efficient in what we're trying to do. So I would urge people, if possible, to test the waters in any capacity. If it's through business or just relationships in general or hiring people, it's small steps to show you what's going to happen down the road. Because here's the thing. I know you can't really see my hand, but I get with Jake.
Watching on YouTube, they can.
Yeah, they can.
Hey, a small step here and a small step here and a small step here, all in the right direction. That's showing me the path that we're going to take. It's going to forecast. It's going to predict the future. And 7 steps in the right direction, it's going to show me that, hey, there's a good likelihood that we're going to stay on this path to mission success, which is down here. Now, if this path is here and here and here and here and here, and then I look at it from a detached perspective, I'm like, this doesn't make sense. Like, 1 + 1 is not 4. Like, this is the wrong answer. Now, before I get heavily involved, before I dump, my second mortgage on my house and risk my kids' education, I know I can't make that decision. So a lot of people, unfortunately, though, JP and I went to high school, and I knew him back in the day, like, here we go, I'm going to give all my assets, let's jump in, let's shake a hand, and then 3 months down the road, I'm like, holy cow, like, JP said he went to college, he didn't even go to college, and now my thing falls apart. And so that's not what you want. So small steps will help lead you to how you can make that appropriate decision before you jump all in with somebody.
That makes a lot of sense, and there's so many things that you can figure out in kind of that discovery process, which is what you would naturally do with someone that you didn't know, right? You would do the background check and you would talk about all of those things. You would set realistic expectations, and we skip a lot of that stuff whenever it's with our friends. And the paper trail, I think, is huge, because I'm thinking back on like every band I ever played in, and like all of those things, right? Where there were 4 or 5 of us that were in a band, and there were 2 of us that did all the work, but the money still got split 5 ways every time we did something, so that 3 guys could go home and play Halo, while the other 2 of us were hustling, trying to get us on tours and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's a really important thing.
I'm just thinking about all the young Marines that are going to be listening to this because of Codey. And I hope you took what he just said to heart in regards to dating and just going and marrying that girl that you just met in that small little town while you're on the road. You're like, man, she's the one. And you've gone out to coffee with her twice and had some drinks on a Friday night, and you're like, this is the one.
That's a whole nother podcast.
And then you decide to go buy the Camaro or Mustang with the high interest rate.
27% interest.
27%. Let's go.
But dang, it's good.
That sounds terrifying.
Oh, we need to. We'll pull the thread and explain that to you a little bit more. That's
we'll
a real
we'll have
thing.
to bring you when we do the muster. or when you guys do, I say when we do the muster, I'm not doing the muster. I will be away from the muster. But when y'all come back for the muster, that could be an interesting show to talk about.
Oh, the shenanigans with that one would be awesome.
Goodness.
Hey man, thank you for everything. Thank you for, obviously your service to our nation, everything you did as a young Marine.
Yeah,
thank you for obviously the leadership that you bring here at Echelon Front. Everything that you do for me and my family. I really appreciate that. Shout out to your amazing wife, Paige, for covering down so that you can be gone, so that you can make impact to people's lives. If it wasn't for Paige doing what she did, you wouldn't be able to do what you do.
100%.
And we all know that. We appreciate that. Man, thank you for all of our listeners. We appreciate you guys listening. For those of you that are subscribed to the show, we appreciate it. If not, please subscribe, like, comment, share. That's huge for us. The same thing with on YouTube. We really appreciate it. Make sure you're following us on social media to see more of what Codey and I do with Echelon Front. It's at Echelon Front. Check it out if you want some information. If you want to book Codey to come out and work with your company, to come out and do a half-day workshop, a full-day workshop. If you need some coaching, some advising, you go to echelonfront.com. That has all the information for what we do at Echelon Front there, any of the upcoming events that people can sign up for. I don't know if when this is released, if it'll be up yet, but it will be in the near future on our calendar at Echelon Front for events, the individual FTXs that we're going to have access to in 2024. It's kind of crazy to say that right now. But in 2024, dude, Codey and his team has an awesome game plan for the individual FTXs, the schedule, the different areas. And I'm just excited for what we're going to do at Echelon Front. I appreciate all your hard work. And if they want to follow you on Instagram, it's Codey.Gandy, CODEY.GANDY. And then if you want to be following Lucas, it's LUCAPINCKARD. And then I know we talked about the Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu podcast. It's Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu _USA. Before I close it out, are you excited about tomorrow's lunch for the FTX?
A little bit. I mean, after Monday, I have high expectations. And now it has ruined all future FTXs if Little Calico is not part of it.
Yeah, so Stephen Little, my business partner with Little Calico, him and his brother Austin came and were grilling out hamburgers and sirloin, and my wife Amanda was there with my father-in-law Jeff for all the catering side of it, and it was amazing. Everybody got a half-pound hamburger from Little Calico, sirloin that was all sliced up, grilled up. It was, I mean, it smelled so good when they were cooking it. And then they had this fajita taco bar set up with all the ground beef from Little Calico as well. Ooh. My wife made this green chili rice. And then regular rice and all the sauteed veggies, and we had fruit and all that. I mean, it was a phenomenal lunch. So I'm looking forward to that tomorrow. So huge shout out to Steven and Austin, my wife, and my father-in-law Jeff for catering all that food, providing all of our customers with a phenomenal meal. And if you want to follow me, it's at JP Dinnell, JPDINNELL. We appreciate all the support. This has been the JP Dinnell Podcast, Episode 3.